Clerk will open the roll for attendance.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
All right. First thing we're going to take up is Senator Spruill's subcommittee on charters. Understand that there was only one that was not reported out unanimously, and that's Senate Bill 523, Senator Lucas. Senator Lucas will be coming on here in a few minutes to present the bill, but the others we can deal with in a block, I believe, Senator Spruill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
So when we call the number, just wanted this.
Yes, go ahead. Let's call the number.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 377, Senate Bill 387, Senate Bill 589, Senate Bill 627, and Senate Bill 699 was reported out of the full committee, subcommittee 5-0. Now so moved.
All right, so there's a motion and a second that we treat those bills that were just enumerated and we put them in a block for passage. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so those bills are in front of us in a block.
So moved.
And it's been moved and seconded that those bills in a block pass. All right, Mr. Clerk, open the roll. All right.
Ayes 11, no 0.
So they're on their way.
Mr. Chairman, the other bill, Senator, the one Senate Bill 532 was reported to the full committee 3-2, and we felt like because that had some problems, we felt like on that one that the patron should be here.
Yes.
On that one.
And she's on her way. She's just got a message. She's on her way from Judiciary.
All right. Okay. All right. That's it, Mr. Chairman, for me, I believe.
All right. I'm getting another message here from one of our members. That's Senator Donovan. She's on her way. Okay. Senator Stanley, I'd take yours, but I'm afraid that's going to be the star of the show today, and we haven't got enough time for that. So.
That's a compliment. I know you meant it as a compliment.
And Senator Lucas is on her way, so I hate to get in the middle of anything. And let's see, Senator Boysko here.
That's the nicest rejection I've ever had in my life.
Hers are going to take a little time, too. She's not even here. All right. And the only thing we've got my little bill.
You can take yours.
Yes, we can. I hate to do anything before Senator Lucas gets here, though, but let me go ahead. Maybe this won't take too long. Senator Howe, can you take that gavel?
Okay.
So this is this is Senate Bill 732. This is a bill which is it's a Chesapeake Bay Commission. I'm sorry, Chesapeake Bay Commission bill comes from the Bay, recommended by our delegation to the Chesapeake Bay Commission, of which Senator Hanger and Delegate Bulova and I are members. It comes at the result of a gaps analysis performed by our staff to find out where we are lacking in our policies compared to other states in the Bay region. And so what this does is it requires that local governments consider, and the key operative word there is consider, in their comprehensive plan, strategies to address climate resilience in order to anticipate, prepare for, respond to, and adapt to changing conditions and hazardous events. Again, this is shall consider. They're not required to adopt any policy. Currently, code already requires Tidewater, Virginia, or localities in Tidewater, Virginia, to follow VIM's guidance regarding shoreline sustainability, and the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission localities to adapt to incorporate strategies regarding sea level rise and recurrent flooding in their comprehensive plans. Plenty of resources are available to local governments in addressing or in considering resilience in their comprehensive plans for them to avail themselves of. And again, this is purely requiring them to have that as part of the discussion. It is really as simplistic as it appears. It is a foundation of our statewide planning efforts for resilience. Localities need to identify strategies and problem areas so that they can begin to access funding, whether it's from the Community Flood Preparedness Fund or from federal resources as they become available. That's the bill, Madam Chair.
I have a question. Thank you. Yes. Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is to the patron. Senator Lewis, it is the way I read the bill that effective July 1, 2022, the localities would have to look at their comprehensive plan to consider strategies to address climate change. correct? In other words, I don't want localities to think they can wait until the next time they amend their comprehensive plan to look at strategies, to consider strategies.
Yes, I believe that is correct, Senator Favola.
Okay. And that's clear enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there further questions? Would anyone like to speak to the bill?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Joanna Faust on behalf of Fairfax County. We'd just like to thank the patron and strongly support the county, like the rest of the Commonwealth, has had to react quickly to such things as hazardous flooding and derechos. Our Fairfax Resilient Planning Initiative has the goal of fortifying the county's resilience to such issues, and we think this is one more option. So we thank you and support.
Thank you. Yes.
Madam Chairwoman, Anna Kilias with the James River Association. We also support the bill for all the reasons previously stated and the excellent reasons given by the patron. We do thank him for his championship of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the Zoom room who's waiting to speak?
Yes. Jay Ford, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Jay Ford with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. For all of the reasons we've already heard, we also support this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that completes the public discussion on this. Is there a motion on the bill?
I second the. Oh.
It's been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 732 be reported. Please record your vote.
Senator Spruill, ayes 11, no 0, abstentions 1.
Ayes 11, nays 0, abstention 1. The bill's reported.
Thank you,
And here you go.
And there's Senator Lucas now. All right, Senator Lucas, we've got your charter bill up here. I understand there was a little heat generated, 523 in subcommittee. Senator Spruill thought best if you come present, and so we'll take it up.
Well, thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and thank you, Senator Spruill, for requesting that I come, because I think I do need to add some clarity to this bill, because I think at the time anybody sees anything about me carrying a bill that wants to change this charters having to do with recall, they think it's personal. But this one is not personal. This bill was at the request of the City of Portsmouth, and as you might have heard in Senator Spruill's subcommittee, presently subsection 12.0 of the Portsmouth City Charter allows a petition signed by 30% of the Portsmouth electors who voted in the last gubernatorial election to be filed with the circuit court to demand successors through resignation or special election of the officer sought to be removed. No specific grounds are required to recall an officer. That is the operative language right there. No specific grounds are required to recall an officer. All you got to do is say, I don't like this person, and get petition signed and recall the person for no reason at all. And so this has happened several times in the City of Portsmouth, as most of you who have been familiar with Portsmouth politics are aware. We've had two mayors. One mayor recalled twice. The third mayor, as you all know, there was a recall done on him, and then members of the City Council also have been, there have been petitions signed to have them recalled at no call for no reason. And so with me, who can explain this, the scenarios going on in Portsmouth without me going through the 8 pages that I was going to present to you this morning, I have Attorney Burl Stromberg, who is the city attorney, who can give you the details of how problematic this has become. If you don't mind, if you can hear from Attorney Stromberg.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Senator Lucas.
Good morning, Senators. Thanks for listening and hearing me today.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep, Senator Spruill.
I'm supporting the bill, but he has done a great job for us last time before the subcommittee, unless the full committee would have heard. But he has done a great job to explain what Senator Lucas is saying for us last time.
Thank you.
If you can do something different. But,
Sure, I sure will. I do
appreciate
echo what Senator Lucas said, Senator. I believe it was Senator Bell by Zoom last in the subcommittee asked what other jurisdictions did. So my office checked about 9 jurisdictions, whether they have charter provisions on recall. 6 do not, the ones we checked. They just rely on the state code, which requires specific grounds. It's very specific in the state code. So they go to the state code 24.2-333. Two jurisdictions, Hampton and Norfolk, require specific grounds and allow a 200-word statement as to what those grounds are to recall somebody. Richmond is sort of a hybrid. Richmond states a couple things in their charter, but then refers to the state code. And so all the other jurisdictions we checked have tougher recall provisions than Portsmouth. Senator Lucas is correct. There have been 3 recalls. 1987, James Holly was recalled. I believe Senator Reeves wanted that information. 2010, Mayor Holly was called for a second time. He was serving a second term years later. And then Mayor Kenny Wright, there was an attempted recall in 2016, not that long ago. All this bill does, Senators, is lines us up with the state code. It requires specific reasons, usually some type of misuse of office. It's very specific, as the state code says. So that's all Portsmouth is asking for, is to put us on the same level as what the state code says and what other jurisdictions require.
Has the Portsmouth Charter always had that kind of wide open provision?
It has. It has, for some reason. I don't know why or how that came about, but it's very permissive.
And let me ask you something. Now, this is just purely a drafting question here. On line 20, after all rights of appeal have been terminated, is that the word you want to use? Yeah, probably.
Let me see what the state code says. I took the language from I think I took that from the state code, but
that's just an unusual word to use.
Yeah, the state code says 24.2-233 for neglect of duty, misuse of office, or incompetence. Upon a conviction of misdemeanor, and after all rights of appeal have terminated, is what the state code uses. I
think you need to get rid of the "been" then. I mean, that's a small thing, I know.
Sure, we have no objection to that.
Make that. I'll make that a motion that we that we strike "been," the word "been" on page 20, and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, I think it makes a little more sense now.
Sure.
And the only other, I have one or two more questions. So on line 37, where it says that the statement of grounds is adequate, who determines its adequacy?
That would be a judge. In the rest of that, the last sentence in subparagraph C. Presently, a judge can take a look at the petition itself, but because we're adding grounds, I added a sentence that says, in addition, a judge of the circuit court may hold a hearing and take evidence to determine the sufficiency of the petition.
How do you get to that hearing?
It refers back to Charter Section 12.08, which it requires an elector to make a...
I see that. Okay.
Sure.
Does anybody else on the committee have any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favola.
I think this bill is a great idea. I was surprised that there could be a recall based on such open language that I guess currently exists when there is a state statute that actually specifies it. So the state statute didn't trump.
You know, that's a good question. My deputy city attorney and I debate that all the time as to which one would take precedent. And I believe the charter probably would, but this is a way to guarantee that they're on the same level. So that doesn't arise in the future also. That's a good point.
You've completely convinced me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Senator DeStep.
Mr. Chairman, I had just one question, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
We're on, I think it's line 20, it talks about having material effect, so basically why you can remove them upon the conduct of office or 2 convictions of a misdemeanor that would have. Is the state code 1 or 2 misdemeanors convictions? I thought the state code was 1 misdemeanor.
Yeah, it is. Now, the state code is very, very specific. It talks about hate crimes and sexual abuse. I didn't get that specific in ours. I just stated misdemeanor that affects.
This says, Senator DeStep, this says a misdemeanor.
It's only a misdemeanor on this one.
Yes, sir, but if I may, Mr. Chairman, it says, or 2 conviction Oh,
No,
got it. Never
two.
mind.
It's
I
paragraph-
was seeing it
Right.
one and then neglect of duty. Never mind.
Right.
As you were. Thank you.
Sir.
Senator Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is kind of, I think, more for council, but my only concern is on, line 37, where we say, you may ask about this before, the adequate statement, that the statement of grounds is adequate. This may be repetitive, but it's possible to reference back that meets what's stated in lines 17 through 20, instead of just leaving it open as adequate. Because really, that's what we want in the statement, correct, is that it meets what we're saying in lines 16 through 20.
I have no problem with that. We can
I-
cite above the aforementioned grounds or something like that.
Yeah, that would work for me, council. Will that work?
I think it makes it clearer than saying adequate to use the same language, and then we're specific.
Or the grounds listed in paragraph A above.
Correct.
I would feel more comfortable if we could do that. If you would, I would consider it friendly, and hopefully you would as well.
Sure, yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
You
Jeff,
good with it?
have you got enough to make an amendment on that?
I think we understand. We're just simply referencing back to paragraph A.
Right,
Correct.
right.
With that, I would move under concept, that amendment.
Yep. Moved and seconded that we amend the bill concurrent with Senator Bell's concept. How's that? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, the bill before us is, well, let me see, anybody in the audience speak in favor of Senate Bill 523?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. There do not appear to be any in the Zoom room,
Anybody
Mr.
in the
Chair.
audience in favor of 523? Anybody opposed to 523?
If there's anyone in the Zoom room who would like to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Okay.
There do not appear to be any at this time, Mr.
The
Chair.
bill as amended is in front of us. Moved and properly seconded that we report Senate Bill 523. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 12, noes 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
Bill
members of the
passes.
committee.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Senator Boysko's here. Senator Boysko, you've got a couple of them.
Yes, I do. Do you have a preference for which we start with?
No, it's up to you.
Okay. Let's go with 446, the broadband services, new and residential commercial development then.
All right, Senator Boysko, have at it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I have a substitute for 446.
Okay. Is a substitute out there? Moved and seconded that we adopt the substitute. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Substitute's in front of us.
Thank you. The substitute moves this now into a Section 1 bill, which calls for the Department of Housing and Community Development to convene the stakeholder advisory group for the purpose of evaluating local and state policies, procedures, and ordinances to facilitate the expansion of high-speed broadband services and associated infrastructure, new residential and commercial development. This we have worked in collaboration with all the stakeholders, including VACO, the home builders, and VCTA. There were concerns over the original bill for who would be required to pay for initial infrastructure, which was the content of my original bill. But I think we've got peace in the valley now, and I hope that you all will support the bill. We know that expanding broadband is essential to all of us in Virginia. It's one of our very top priorities, and I hope that you will report 446 to the full Senate.
We get where you're going. Senate Bill 446. Is there any questions from the committee on 446?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Boysko, can I just ask who asked you to petition this bill? Was this a by request bill?
Someone in the former administration suggested it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Senator Favola, have you got a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. Senator Boysko, the department shall report its findings no later than September 30th, 2022. That's a really short time frame. Are you comfortable with that?
Madam Chair, Senator Favola, the stakeholders agreed, and some of them are sitting in the room with me. They felt that this would be enough time to make some of those.
Make some recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Any other questions from the committee?
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, Senator D-Staff.
If we may, do we have Andrew from the Home Builders here?
You've been pressed into service, Mr. Clark.
Sorry about that, Mr. Clark.
Yeah, it's all right.
I wasn't sure if you
enjoy
were
it.
back there or not. I saw you
I was
meandering
hiding.
around
There's
earlier.
a good screen there.
There you go. So the builders from this, the Home Building Association is okay with this from understand the cost that this is all over Virginia, not just in Northern Virginia.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I would say yes. I think the intent of this work group was to get local governments and the development community, both residential and commercial, talking about what localities are doing now to make sure that broadband infrastructure is included in new developments. And so kind of a clearinghouse of tools and best practices for localities that may not, have large planning staffs and things like that. And then also kind of from the development side, what we could do to help ensure that new developments, if they go further out, have broadband. So I think it's a productive discussion to have for both sides.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Andrew.
Any other questions? Anybody in the audience to speak on Senate Bill 446?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Mr. Lamura.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We appreciate working with Senator Boysko on this. And as Andrew noted, we're going to be working collaboratively. We understand the timeline that is here, but we feel that bringing everyone to the table very quickly will also enable us to provide any crafting of legislations that's necessary before the next General Assembly session in a timely manner. There are still 50,000 residents of Virginia unserved, and having a strategic approach, which the Commonwealth does, is very important. You all have been lauded around the nation for the Virginia Telecommunications Initiative and its focus on the unserved. So this will enable us to get the work group together and provide that strategy for you all.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience to speak either in for or against Senate Bill 446?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak against this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. There are none at this time, Mr. Chair.
All right. Substitutes in front of us.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded that we report Senate Bill 446, amendment in the nature of a substitute. Mr. Clerk, please open the roll.
So did you lose a bet like I did?
Ayes 14, no 0.
All right, Senator Boysko, you've got 452.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So this deals with energy efficiency. And, Mr. Chairman, I have substitute for SB 452 also.
Moved and seconded, we adopt the substitute for Senate Bill 452. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Substitute's in front of us.
Thank you so much. So again, talking with stakeholders, had to change the bill so that we could have a little bit more common ground with folks, but still not sure that we are 100% in alignment. This would just have one requirement, that the Board of Housing and Community Development would consider and adopt an optional building efficiency energy efficiency standard designed to enable any locality to adopt and enforce the latest version of the International Green Construction Code published by the International Code Council, notwithstanding differences from the general applicable uniform state building codes within its jurisdiction. As we've seen in recent years, the climate emergency by the world is facing us, and it's getting worse, and our planet is more at risk than ever. And taking action now to combat these problems is not only an important step to prevent future issues, but also to correct those that already exist. Flooding, fires, health impacts from higher temperatures. We think that we should be working together. And Virginia ranks 25th nationally for building efficiency. Energy efficiency, according to the American Council for the Energy Efficient Economy. Virginia's Uniform State Building Code is years behind the standards used by many other states, and current Virginia building standards lag behind those issued by the International Energy Conservation Code. Making homes and businesses and public institutions more energy efficient will create good jobs. It will lower the long-term utility bills for building owners and homeowners and reduce the need to invest in costly electric generation. Any home builder that operates in Virginia and Maryland or District of Columbia is already complying with the different building codes in Maryland and D.C. because their building standards are higher. And while it would be ideal if we could get Virginia to adopt the IECC codes for all new homes, we know that there are stakeholders who are just not ready for that. So the solution that I'm proposing is to adopt an optional code for those localities who are ready to ensure that their homes sold in their communities are energy efficient, guaranteeing lower energy costs for the lifetime of their home, and that benefits both the homeowner and the environment. I've had several conversations with stakeholders for this legislation. They're concerned about the initial higher cost of building. But let's think about this. Maryland has gone for the full IECC standard since 2012. There's been no disruption for similarly marketed products. And, people with fewer resources end up paying higher energy costs. I think we can all agree with that. And so by not allowing this, I believe that the poor people will pay the higher energy costs for the lifetime of their home. It's going to be more expensive for them in the long term. And they already pay a disproportionate share of their income towards things like utility costs. I think this is a reasonable initiative. I've been working with the Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions and the Sierra Club, and I have people here to speak if you have any questions.
Mr. Chairman.
I think, wait a minute, Senator Spruill, I think Senator DeStefan was up first.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Senator DeStefan.
I'll defer to Senator Spruill first, Mr.
Senator
Chairman.
Spruill.
Thank you. I had one person come out and see me. They sent a good bill for North Virginia because people like my chairman, these two young ladies, they got a lot of money. But those of us who live down city, they were saying that it is great, but what about those who live down city, up to the Hampton Roads area, that we can't afford to do what they can do up in North Virginia? So have you fixed that as far as making comparable so that everybody can live and enjoy what you're talking about?
Mr. Chairman and Senator Spruill, again, this allows an optional change in the building code, but again, I will just reiterate, the upfront cost will be paid out long by lower energy costs in the long term, and I think it's an important thing that we consider it.
Senator DeStefan.
Mr. Chairman, I may, if I can call Andrew Clark back up.
I think he'll get up on his own, Senator DeStefan.
Okay, then I've got a question for him on this, and
Okay.
then I have a question for the patron, maybe two, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Clark, while you're walking up here, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes,
Andrew,
yes.
can you tell me what the increased cost of construction to comply with the International Green Construction Code is?
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Clark with the Home Builders. I would say it's a difficult question to answer. I think 10 states have adopted the International Green Construction Code. We haven't adopted it in Virginia. To my knowledge, I've been involved for some time. I would say that I imagine that some of the provisions are similar, probably more stringent than the International Energy Code, which, well, I'll probably reserve some of my comments at the end, but just as a general comment, Virginia's energy code is not decades behind, it's not years behind. Actually, this last code cycle, we worked with the Energy Coalition to get us pretty in line with the 2018 International Energy Code. We're starting the next code process to consider the 2021 International Code. So it's not a fair characterization to say Virginia's decades behind. DHCD has a report that says we're first in the South. American Council for Energy Efficient Economy gives us near perfect score for residential code stringency. So I think just the general premise we do have concerns about, but also the impact of essentially requiring every new home be built to a higher standard, whereas now you've got a baseline standard for your building code and allowing consumers to make the choice to purchase a more efficient home if they so choose and can afford. So that's a long answer. Apologize.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, Senator DeStefano.
And Andrew, I looked into this because I may have built one or two residential homes. But when we did an energy efficient residential home with the IGCC, and we did the independent thing where they basically seal the home and tell you how energy efficient it is for those tax breaks, it ended up costing 18% more than a regular home that we built. Now, we made sure we had high efficiency light bulbs. We made sure that we did everything from spray and insulation, the foam insulation on the walls, then the insulation. So we really did a great job, in my opinion, of that. But it was 18% more. And Mr. Chairman and Andrew, my question is, as soon as we did something like that, and I understand long-term that there's truly a cost benefit, but short-term, a lot of people, when they go to buy their first home or even their second home, they're on a budget and they're really getting ready to stretch to be able to procure that home.
Right.
They can put LED bulbs in at their own to save money later, but up front, they only qualify for so much. So they're really at a reach. I'd like to even maybe get the realtors to chime in on this one. But when we saw this, and again, I'm just going to tell you that the average home that we build at the lower end is right about $400,000. So you add another $38,000 to that, and you've taken another class of citizens who they can't stretch for that additional 38%. So my concern with this is as soon as we implement something like this, those who can barely afford to purchase a home, we're putting them another 18% behind immediately. And that's kind of the concern I have, and I was hoping we'd get the realtors to speak to this. And Andrew, I just saw the substitute. I already knew what I was going to do with the original bill. When I saw this, I thought I'd try to explain a little further that what we're about to do, if we were to adopt a measure like this, is set another group of citizens that much further from obtaining home ownership. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Hackworth's next in line.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to speak on this as well. As a Class A contractor in Southwest Virginia, I think that I concur with Senator D's staff, that this would just put out of reach first-time homeowners and builders as well, especially with the cost of increased materials and labor in the home building industry. At this point, I think this would I understand the intent of the bill, and we try to do that, but I think trying to make people do that would put it out of reach to a lot of people. So I can't go along with that. Thank you.
Senator Favolo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe this is a question for General Counsel. As I read the bill, a locality would have the option of applying these standards, but wouldn't these standards be applied in cases where a builder's coming forward asking for a special exception? They either need a variance or additional density, or could this be applied across the board for any residential building by right? Because I think that's I think that's really a distinction. If a builder needs a variance or additional density, they're asking for something from the public and expecting more in terms of a public benefit is a context that all three of my jurisdictions use, either through a proffer system or Arlington uses a site plan process.
Mr. Chair, I had to ask if the council would like to clarify that.
Can you answer that?
I'm not sure I completely understand the question, but if I do, I think these sort of standards apply across the board when a home is constructed, regardless of whether it's through a variance or rezoning or what have you.
That would be the way this country lawyer would interpret it.
And Mr. Chair, I'd just like to restate again, this would be an optional building efficiency standard for a locality to make a decision about. So if Senator Hackworth's community feels that it would be too expensive, they would have that ability to choose not to adopt them. But in Arlington County, perhaps, or in Fairfax County or in Loudoun County, where there's a real push for it, they would have the ability to make that decision for themselves. Again, this is not prescribing or forcing a locality to take on these the way my interpretation is looking at, but adopting an optional building efficiency standard. And I have someone from the Sierra Club.
Let me wait just a sec. Senator Spruill has a question.
My question is that it's a locality. Let me use Chesapeake for an example. In Hickory, Virginia, and Grassfield, that work very well because they are comparable to North Virginia, the other Virginia. But then you go to any river section and South Norfolk section, which is where people who really struggle to buy homes, then it will not work. So what happens, so when you to localities, so you're talking about approval by city council, the planning commission, city council?
Or county commissions, board of supervisors?
City, we don't have that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So my question is that suppose if the developer will come and say that we want to do this in any river section, when we know that those homes, the people are this pay scale, the homes are not like the ones that are in Grassfield and the Hickory, part of Virginia, who we know that part of Chesapeake, they're real high homes and they can afford that. Okay, but in the river section they cannot. So if a developer will come before the planning commission and city council, and they say no because the location of the area in the river in South Norfolk, that's a poor section of the city, no. But then another developer will come and want to build homes in Grassfield where yes, they could afford to do it. Are we open ourselves up to a lawsuit because council turned this developer down because of the location of the city that we're saying that no, that not that location, then you approve another developer for the Grassfield area that probably can. So you open up a lawsuit on city council because you turned one down, but yet you approve of another.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is not a consideration that I had taken. My understanding is this asks the Board of Housing and Community Development to consider and adopting some optional building efficiency standards that any locality could adopt if they choose. And that would be at the will of that local government.
Mr.
I don't have an answer for you on
Senator
your question,
Yeah,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to answer that question. I understand what she was saying, but that locality has to be in Chesapeake anyway. We'll go before the planning commission or the zoning board of planning commission at first, and then we'll go for the city council. The planning commission only recommends. So I'm just concerned that will city council recommend yes to one locality, but no to another locality, then my firm said, well, I'm going to carry city council to court because Mike Pike Investment Company and Grassfield now, you gave them permission to do the exact same thing I want to do. But just because the homes in the lower part of the city is not like those in Grassfield, and you say no to them, all I'm saying is there a possibility of a lawsuit by anybody before city council is saying you say yes because your bill does not specify that if an area that cannot afford and a lower part of the city cannot afford what you propose to do, but this part can. All I'm saying is there a possible lawsuit to city council because you turn one down and turn another down, and there's no cover in the bill to protect city council if you say yes to one and no to another.
Mr. Chair, I would defer to council, but I don't think that my bill addresses that at all. I don't think there's any discussion or consideration of how a locality would handle that.
Mr. Chairman, as I understand, these provisions would apply across the entire city.
Correct.
All right. Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sometimes I'm convinced as we're sitting here in Richmond, that we're missing the forest for the trees. We are so wrapped around now what is really a minor suggestion from Senator Boysko. When we have intermittent flooding going on down in Tidewater, we have abnormal weather events going on, we are not dealing, in my opinion, at all down here with global warming. This would be one of the teeniest little efforts to make a difference in this topic, and yet we're not even prepared to do that. We are going to be having calamities down in Tidewater for sure. They're already starting. So I would think we should just, face it, bite the bullet, and start making some hard choices. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just want to reiterate the points that Senator Boysko, the patron, has been making about the ways in which this particular legislation is an option for localities, and as we just heard from Senator Howell, it's absolutely essential that we begin to make some changes and address the issues of climate change. This bill actually is in alignment with an area that I've been working on with some very critical stakeholders, and that is in the manufacturing of concrete cement. Cement in particular is responsible for about 40% of carbon emissions, and it is in the manufacturing of buildings and the construction of buildings that we really see the impact through cement manufacturing on carbon emissions across the country and across the world. That bill, which was, I think, SB 272, has now gone to DGS to convene a work group for study. But even the industry partners in this area recognize the imperative that we have as a Commonwealth to address the impact that building construction in particular, has on our climate. And so I think this is a very necessary next step for us as we begin to address the larger impacts of climate change. And I would hope that we are able to support this legislation.
Now, I've got Senator Hackworth and Senator Bell in queue here, but let me just ask, do you have questions for Senator Boysko? You'll get a chance to speak to the bill at the end, but I want to get the folks in the audience to participate.
Mr. Chairman, mine's a real quick question.
Okay, sure. Go ahead. If you got a question, go ahead.
My question was, the Senator Stephan mentioned 18% higher costs in building. Do we have any idea what percentage of efficiency this would add?
Thank you. My witness from the Sierra Club has all the details.
All right. Senator Hackworth, did you have a question or just want to speak to the bill? Senator Stephan, do you have a question?
Mr. Chairman, I was actually going to address Senator Bell's question or answer his question because I actually went through and did that whole thing. And in Virginia Beach, Mr. Chairman, Senator Bell, we actually, if you have an energy efficient home and you apply for it and you go through and pay for the studies and you do all that, you can actually get a lower tax rate. But that's Virginia Beach. That's not the rest of the state. So I understand what it means in Virginia Beach, but I don't in the rest of the state. And I know across the entire state, specifically in Northern Virginia, we address every single year down here affordable housing. And as Senator Hackworth said earlier, with the increased cost of labor, the increased cost of material, just the market rate alone in Northern Virginia increase, you've just added 18% more, so much for affordable housing. We're going to be back here next year trying to figure out how do we lower the cost of housing? How do we lower the cost of building houses so people can afford to live? And, there's a fine balance between what we're doing here. And I understand this truly is a policy decision, and the policy is what we're debating here. And frankly, I love the fact that we're debating that policy. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Is there anybody speaking in favor of Senate Bill 452?
If you are in the Zoom room and would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Yes, sir. State your name.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Bob Shippey with Sierra Club. I want to thank the patron. We strongly support this bill. And I want to clarify a couple of things very quickly, and then I think we may have a couple of Zoom witnesses as well. First, we have had good dialogue with the home builders. I am not against Andrew and his group. I actually think he's right that in the last few years we're starting to catch up in Virginia a little bit. We hope in the cycle that's just beginning now with the latest building code regulatory process that maybe we can catch up completely. But that's all the more reason that this IGCC standard isn't that big of a leap for Virginia. It's used in many states, as he mentioned, from Texas to Idaho. No evidence that there's a significant impact on affordability in any of those states. I think we may have a witness that does some building in high efficiency ways, and he can demonstrate that the savings are dwarfing the upfront cost over the course of them paying their mortgage and paying their monthly utility bills. So I think senators from both sides here have rightfully raised the issue of affordability. And I think this bill is not just an environmentally strong bill, which of course it is, but it also is a greater affordability for homeowners from all ends of the spectrum, because their monthly utility bills are going to go down more than the increase in their mortgage on that building. So I just wanted to clarify those things and say that we're not mortal enemies up here. I think we've got different constituents that they're battling for their interests, and that's a good thing. But I really want to dispel the idea that this is somehow going to be some financial burden on the owners of these buildings, because over time it's actually a savings.
All right, thank you. Next, in support.
Mr. Chairman, Joe Lurch with Virginia Association of Counties. We do have it in our platform to support legislation that allows localities to meet their energy efficiency goals. We think this is a step in that direction. I think, Senator DeStefano, to your point, there is legislation that allows localities to provide tax exemptions, and hopefully they would marry those two if they were to do that. Once again, local option, they would have to, get it by with a local ordinance and the input from the community. So thank you.
Next, in support.
If you're in the Zoom room and you would like to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically.
Still doing support.
Eric Goppelrud, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
My name is Eric Goppelrud. I'm the board chair of the Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, representing more than 2,600 faith-based activists from over 190 faith communities. Energy efficiency is the cheapest, quickest, and cleanest way to meet Virginia's rising energy needs and boost our economy. New buildings that are constructed to be highly efficient will produce energy savings for the life of the building. The SB 452 directs the Board of Housing and Community Development to use the IGCC code, which is a standard developed by the same standard-setting body, the ICC, that is specified by Title 36-99 of the Virginia Code for the USBC. The IGCC is currently used by 14 states and the District of Columbia. These include Florida, Kansas, and even Texas. Many of Virginia's large home and commercial builders already build to the IGCC standards in Maryland and D.C. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now, anybody here to speak in opposition to 452?
If you are in the Zoom room and would like to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chair, do you want to do in-person or Zoom first?
Let's see who's here.
Back again.
Back again.
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Clark with the Home Builders Association. My comments are in line with what I stated previously. I'll say, just in response to a few of the comments made regarding Senator Howe resiliency and being ready for hurricanes and other natural disasters, the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety actually ranks, since probably 2010, Virginia's number 1 or 2 in the 18th flood-prone or hurricane-prone states along the East Coast. Last year, there was, actually 2 years ago, a resiliency subcommittee set up within the building code, and so we are making a lot of progress on that front. I'll be totally honest, I had not seen the substitute, and so I haven't been able to really dive into it, but I'll say that any builder and consumer can make the personal financial decision to have a home constructed to a higher energy efficiency standard. Builders are more than willing to do that, of course, but we also have to think about the fact that when we set the baseline so high, there are folks who don't have the savings to afford the down payment, the closing costs. We're pricing them out of the market. So we set a building code to ensure that all homes and structures are to a set standard that we deem acceptable, and then allow consumers the choice to build from there. And our concern with this bill is that you're essentially saying that all new homes must be built to a higher standard, which really has a significant impact on housing affordability. So those are my comments, and I hope you will oppose the bill. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman,
Senator Pike.
a question for Andrew. Sorry. Happy Monday. Good morning.
I know.
So, would you
favorite
not agree that, number one, most folks buying a home also maybe don't understand the technical issues around the R value, the insulation value in initial construction?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Is it not true that once a home is built, the likelihood of someone removing the siding, removing the insulation, doing a rewrap, increasing the R value, increasing the insulation, is probably 0% chance that that'll ever be revised or redone unless the house burns down and has to be regutted and then updated to code standard?
I would agree, but I would say that
Thank you,
was
Mr.
more of
Chairman.
If you want to, go ahead. Go ahead.
I would say that was, I think, an issue that we're focusing on existing homes that were built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s that were at a dramatically lower level than where we're at now. I think we would all agree that the standard, the minimum standard that homes are built at currently is much higher than, and I think reduces the need for eventually consumers to come back and significantly renovate their homes. I think about my home. I'm not sure it has insulation to begin with. But that was the standard in the 50s and 60s. That's not the case now. So I would agree that our codes need to continue evolving, but we can't, I think, set the bar so high that folks just don't even have a shot at getting into some of those houses. So,
Thank you. Next in opposition, Mr. Abraham.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Phil Abraham, representative Virginia Association for Commercial Real Estate. We share the concerns expressed by Mr. Clark. I'd also say the substitute takes away all discretion from the Board of Housing and Community Development. It requires that you adopt this code, and it requires specifically which international code you should use in doing so. And I think for those reasons, we oppose this bill. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience to speak against Senate Bill 452? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Bisma Ahmed with the Apartment and Office Building Association and the Virginia Apartment Management Association. For the comments already provided, we also oppose the bill.
Is there anyone else here? I see we've got somebody virtually. Okay, let's cue Mr. Dix up.
John Dix, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chip Dix on behalf of the Virginia Realtors, and we likewise share the concerns that have been already expressed. We're at a historic high in housing costs. The interest rates are clearly going to go up. We're concerned about the ability of folks to make a down payment. We recognize and support energy efficiency and think that's a very good thing. We also don't believe, though, as Mr. Abraham said, that the General Assembly should dictate to the Board of Housing what code they adopt. So for those reasons, we oppose the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Senator Kiggins, I see you're in queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just had a comment in discussions with just local builders who build a lot of affordable housing in Virginia Beach, at least, and some of their barriers. They've just said the past couple years there's so many new regulations and just taxes imposed on them. And I think of it just through a lens of housing as an affordable housing as a component of healthcare, and we want more people to have affordable housing, and I think we can all agree on that. So I just, listening to some of the costs, the concerns with the cost of building and the supply chain issues, and it seems like every builder that I sit down with at least, they're all complaining about how we're making it harder for them. And I want more affordable housing out there, more than anyone, again, just as a really important component of good health. So I just question the timing. I mean, I live in a 1975 house, and we are certainly not as energy efficient as I wish we were, and we work when we, upgrade our air conditioner, we get new insulation, or we, do some upgrades to the house. So it's a work in progress, and we try to be good stewards of energy and whatnot. So we work for that, but I don't think it's something that just to make that a requirement, from the get-go, because or else I'd have to rip my house down and, build new in a perfect world. But I think just as the goal of getting more, more people in homes, I won't be able to support the bill just because I feel like the timing and the requirement that we're putting on the builders in this day and age isn't probably the right time. But thank you.
Senator Hackworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I feel like Senator Reeves, when he gets on the floor and says that he is the last officer that had served in the Senate, and I think Senator DeSteff does some construction too, but this is truly our livelihood, a large part of our income, being a contractor for close to 30 years. And I appreciate the patron and what the intent is, like I said before, because I feel like that we are moving in this direction. When I started 30 years ago, of course, the insulation R values have dramatically increased. Construction has dramatically come to technology to make homes more efficient, and we welcome those changes. And to answer Senator McPike's question to Andrew about do they upgrade their homes after they're built, absolutely they do. That's a large part of our business is we have clients that come in and they have bought homes that was constructed in the 90s, and we go in, we put high efficiency windows, we take the siding off, we put insulation on the walls. We have companies that specialize in doing insulation in the interior of the walls. We do a lot with historical homes doing the same thing. So that is a large part of the industry is making older homes more energy efficient. So we are going that way. There is mechanism to do that. The second point that really worries me the most about this is when you give localities the option to be able to choose. Sometimes there's a disconnect between localities and the developers. So on the surface, when you read this, it's a great idea. So if localities actually pass this and they have not gotten with the building associations and have not gotten with their builders and developers, they may inadvertently pass something that will stifle the growth of affordable housing in their area. And, the proverbial saying, the cow's already left the barn. And so then they would have to go back and try to get maybe variances or things of that nature. So we've heard from HBA that Virginia is well on its way to becoming, if they are the leader in some of the resiliency and efficiency in the country. So I feel like that we're on track to do that, and we're going to see great strides in the near future. But I think, by forcing this and putting that in localities that may inadvertently pass something that may hurt them and their localities, I think it's a bad idea. And that's what I would comment, Mr. Chair.
All right, Senator Hackworth. Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the patron putting the bill forward. Last week was Groundhog's Day, and I'm pretty sure 20 years ago, there's probably a debate in local government that the same folks, just in different folks and in the same positions, were having the same arguments 20 years ago. And, at some point, we need to move the ball forward. And I guess I'll play I've built affordable housing, and I've actually constructed as a builder as well, and I've done affordable housing, going back 15 years ago using Earthcraft Standard and LEED and many others. I've been a LEED accredited professional for almost 20 years now as well. And, at some point, we've got to move the ball forward. And setting a minimum standard to do nothing is not an acceptable answer, at least for my kids and hopefully my grandkids at some point in time down the future. And we got to start to move the ball forward and start to set a standard that's going to be higher. The fact is the existing housing stock is going to remain only a few percent as Senator Hackworth mentioned, will probably ever go in and do that renovation. There are a few that will do that, but in terms of doing a full wrap, full improvement to R value, most of those homes are going to stay. Probably 95+% are never going to change. And at some point, we got to raise the bar. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I move to report as the substitute.
I will second that motion, Mr.
It's
Chairman.
been properly moved and seconded that we report Senate Bill 452 as an amendment in the nature of a substitute. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 8, no 6. Excuse me, ayes 6, noes 8.
All right. Thank you, Senator Boysko.
Thank you.
Now, the moment we've all waited for, the Bill Stanley hour. Senate Bill 85. And I know there is there's been, obviously, we've all received a lot of information on this bill, so we're going to have to set a time limit on this one. When the time comes, for opponents and advocates of the bill, we'll do 5 minutes on each side. But Senator Stanley, you have all the time you need.
You're going to regret that. That's right. That's right. Senator Favola is exactly right. I have some handouts. It's one of these. Thank you. Yes, please. Have some more. Here, let's give you these so you don't know. There you go. And these. Sorry, bud. So, Mr. Chairman, just doing a little housekeeping as we go. Mr. Chairman, if I can, and members of the committee, Senate Bill 85 is before you. And let me open by saying this. Since I was a very young boy, I've come to the city of Martinsville for family, to vacation. As a young man, I came to the city of Martinsville and practiced there my first time. Well before any politics, well before anything that comes before this committee. Because it was a thriving, wonderful place. And Martinsville is and remains a great city with incredible people who do great things. It led in the Industrial Revolution of Virginia and the Commonwealth. It has fought through NAFTA and CAFTA when our jobs went overseas. We have seen a depletion somewhat of our population. But the spirit of the people of the city of Martinsville has never wavered. They have never given up. They have never given in. And they have fought for their city and their town over and over and continue to do so to this very day. We have seen a turnaround, a slow turnaround in the economic fortunes of the city of Martinsville and in Henry County. They are fighting every day to restore that. We have seen a slowing of the depletion of our population, and we're seeing more of our young people staying, putting down roots, growing a family. What is going on right now is that the city of Martinsville is contemplating or in the throes or acts of a reversion process. I have had the privilege and honor of representing the great city of Martinsville for the past decade and its people. I reach out, and Mr. Chairman, they're probably very smart. They continue to not vote for me, but that doesn't matter. I still come up here and vote for them. While I may not have won an election, they've been close. And you know what? I meet with the faith-based leaders and the activists on a regular basis. And the one thing that they came to me and said is, we've not had a say. We are not allowed to determine our own fate in this reversion process. And we deserve that. And what you have before you then is a letter from the Martinsville-Henry County Democrat Committee supporting the House version of what is this version of the bill, which is merely this: to let the people decide, the people who stayed there, the people who fought through the good and the bad and the awful, the people who call the city of Martinsville their home. We should let, as a part of reversion, have their voices heard, because many of those who came to the public hearing spoke against reversion, but it was ignored. And in fact, Mr. Chairman, I do believe we have a substitute. Is that right?
Mr. Chairman, there's a technical line amendment, that's what I'm referring
The
to.
bill itself had to where it had to be over 50% of all the registered voters in order to be successful, and it should be just a 50% of all voters who vote in that referendum.
Mr. Chairman, on line 22, after the word city, insert voting on the question.
So we've got an amendment in front of us. Move the amendment.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we adopt the amendment. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, the bill is amended. It's in front of us.
Now, Mr. Chairman, Senate Bill 85 brings Chapter 41 of Title 15.2, which you know very well, which is the transition of a city to town status, into line with the other groups of the Virginia statutes that authorizes changes in municipal, city, town, and county government. All other Virginia change of government statutes require a voter referendum except for reversion from a city to a town. For example, a town to revert to a city, voter referendum is required under 15.2.3801. Mr. Chairman, though, we know that there's a moratorium in Virginia when it comes to cities. They don't make any more. We won't have any more cities. If they choose to revert, they can't take it back. But yet, if you want it to become from a town to a city, the referendum of the people is required. The people who live there vote on it. County voters are given an election to vote to adopt or reject charters for a county transitioning to a city. 15.2.39.14. An order for election is required to consolidate like units of local government. Mr. Chairman, as you well know, under Virginia Code 15.2.35.05. Mr. Chairman, no citizen committees were ever formed to provide public input on emerging agreements. Our city council met formally with city school officials only once during this period. Quite frankly, we have one of the best high schools in the Commonwealth of Virginia and the best history for sports, the Martinsville Bulldogs. If reversion occurs, then all that history and all those schools, those city schools, close down. No more city courts. No more city schools. Well, if that's the case, then let the voters decide, because then we should not fear the voter to make that decision for Martinsville. But yet, the Memorandum of Understanding and Voluntary Settlement Agreements were not even made available to the public for their viewing until the day they were approved, respectively, by the City Council and the Board of Supervisors of Henry County. I have over and over gotten phone calls from people who live in the city, pastors, and you have a pastor's letter in support of this legislation. A malaise fell upon them, a helplessness, as if things were getting done for them and they had no input. As you've heard me say on the Senate floor sometimes, it reminds me of when my father would lovingly say to me, but he said it lovingly, "When I want your opinion, I will give it to you." This appears to be the feeling of the people of the city of Martinsville. They feel like the reversion's been fast-tracked and that they've been left out. I think there were a number of people. There was a public hearing on September 8th. Of the people that spoke, one had no real specific opinion. I've watched this video. 3 were for reversion. 29 were against reversion. Of the 29 that spoke against in that public hearing, 17 specifically cited the lack of citizen input as their reason. If we were to have an election and a referendum to decide this major question, then those that are for reversion can make their case to the public. Those that are against can do the same as we do in our elections. And then the people who will go to the polls in November, who are the citizens of the great city of Martinsville can decide. This does not stop reversion. This puts it to the people because it's their right to determine their fate and their form of government, not have it determined for them. There is, at this point in time, an intent of the Martinsville City Council. They approved an ordinance to file a contested reversion. They intend to petition the Supreme Court to form a 3-judge panel. But there is no ongoing litigation. And nor should it matter when it comes to the vote. I don't want my Martinsville High School sweatshirt to be a piece of history. I believe in the city. This is a majority-minority city, majority African-American city, and they don't give up. I am so proud to represent them and hopefully in the next election to continue to represent them. And so that's why I'm here. Because those pastors came to me, those activists came to me, and they've asked me to put this bill in. Mr. Chairman, it seems only natural and right that we actually adopt by this statute the rule that in 2006 the city of Martinsville's City Council put into effect, which said we will not revert. They told the people in 2006 that they would not revert unless there was a referendum first. Now we hear sometimes, well, you know, and you'll hear today, well, you know, the 2006 council can't bind us. But that's the promise they made to the people. They didn't at any time say, hey, we're withdrawing that resolution. They just changed their minds. And for that, I've heard from many citizens who say, you know, we thought that was a settled question, that we'd participate. And that's what this bill seeks to do. If the citizens vote for reversion, then reversion it is. If the citizens don't vote for reversion, then reversion it is not. I would call upon you, again, to read from my friend Naomi Hodge-Muse, one of the first people that has ever come to me. The NAACP supports this. The local Democrat committee supports this. And our faith-based pastors, some of the greatest people that you will ever meet, support having the people decide.
Mr. Chairman.
Who was that? Senator Reeves.
Senator Stanley, you said there is no pending legal case going on, correct? Nothing in the courts filed?
Mr. Chairman, I answered Senator Reeves by saying yes.
Thank you,
I believe
Mr.
that's
Chairman.
correct, yes.
Senator Sproul.
Chairman, I have a separate 2 or 3 questions. Number one, this is the citizen of the city, not the county. They're going to make the decision, right?
Mr. Chairman, I would answer my good friend Senator Sproul by saying only the citizens of the city of Martinsville would determine their fate, not the county.
Second question, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, Senator Sproul.
Then the council. So you're saying, so what about the city council? How did city council vote?
Mr. Chairman, I would answer the gentleman by saying I believe there's 5 on the city council, and it was 4-1 in favor of reversion.
4-1.
All right, let's okay.
The last vote was 4-1.
Keep it at the podium.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize.
Second question. So if council, so you're saying so the 4-1, Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Yep,
so
go ahead.
4-1 members of the city council vote to do what you want to do.
No, Mr. Chairman, not to confuse my good friend Senator Sproul, the city council voted for reversion, to revert from a city to a town.
Okay.
But they did so without a referendum, which would then determine whether they revert or not. And this doesn't make the decision opposite. It just gives the people the right to make it for them.
2 more questions, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, Senator Sproul.
Then so you're saying the city council went back on the agreement to allow by referendum.
Mr. Chairman, I would answer my good friend Senator Sproul by saying in 2006 there was a resolution passed by the city council of the city of Martinsville that said if reversion was to take place, then it would happen by referendum. They never withdrew that resolution. They just ignored that resolution some years later.
Okay, last question. Then why can't, I hate to keep using Chesapeake, where I love, when the city council make a pledge to the folks election time when they vote them out of office. So why can't they just vote them out of office and get some more folks to do what they want to do?
Mr. Chairman, I would answer my good friend Senator Spruill by saying that is the election process as well. But we don't have elections coming up that would change that in any time soon.
Well, thank you.
And I'm aware of.
Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe this is a question for the patron or maybe for general counsel, but are there specific authorities that are different between a city and a town? Or is everything driven by a charter?
You go for that. I'll answer too.
Mr. Chair, under the Code of Virginia, there are definitely differences in authority between cities and towns, and then, of course, the charter is further refined what the powers are of the cities and towns.
And, Mr. Chairman, I would add to that, one of those things is the power to annex property, which is granted to a town, not a city, because the city, of course, the city proper has defined corners. That could mean, let's just say by way of example, Martinsville, if it were to return to a town status, could annex the Speedway and tax it. The other thing is, Mr. Chairman and Senator Favola, is they double tax. And that seems to be one of the big concerns that I've heard over and over from the citizenry, is that there is a double taxation. Right now, the city of Martinsville, people are taxed by the city of Martinsville, provide water, electricity, they do all that. That is all put in question, and the possibility exists, nay, the probability exists that there's going to be double taxation. And that taxation without representation should not occur anyway in America.
All right. Is there anybody in the audience to speak in favor of Senate Bill 85?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Ruth Easley. I'm the duly elected Commissioner of Revenue for the City of Martinsville. I've been the Commissioner of Revenue for 20 years. We've gone through, in the 20 years that I've been Commissioner, this is the third time that the city has approached reversion. The previous times there was more stakeholder input. The school boards were consulted. That did not happen this time. The only hearings we've had have been public hearings. The information that was presented to the public was done immediately before a public hearing. This is a very complex discussion that you can't do a presentation and expect everybody in the audience to understand what's there. Even the presentation that was done on the initial vote, I had questions about some of the information that was provided in it, and there are some inconsistencies that have never been addressed. That information was posted the day after the vote was taken, and it's been full steam ahead since that time. There's been no input from the public, and as an elected official, just like you all, we represent the people who put us in office, and we have a trust to uphold. I hear it from the constituents that come into my office that they feel like they are not being heard. And we have a city council that has done that. Henry County has tapped the brakes on the voluntary settlement agreement and offered to the city council to stop and listen and go back to the drawing board, but we're still moving forward in the city. Our constituents have not been heard. And there are 17 references in Title 15.2 of the Code of Virginia that if you want to change some form of your local government, it requires a referendum. This issue under Senator Stanley's bill will not kill reversion. It allows the citizens to have a vote in what their future will be. A reversion is a very permanent decision, and it should be afforded the proper vote by the citizens that it will affect. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your service to the Commonwealth.
Hang on a sec. Senator Spruill, can you stop the clock?
Can you put 12 seconds back on the game?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Senator Spruill.
So you were saying Senator Stanley being a lawyer, he always confuses me. So what you're saying, then you want to go back, what you're saying to allow the citizens to have a referendum.
Exactly. And that's what Senator Stanley, Mr. Chairman, that's what Senator Stanley's bill will do. It will allow a referendum. Doesn't stop reversion. It allows the people a voice as to what this is, if this is what they want to do.
Senator Stanley, please, Senator. Then, so you're not trying to change council mind. Are you saying that, hey, something's wrong here. But based on 2006, you saying, all we are saying, let's go back to 2006, like you promised, and have a referendum. Let the chips fall where they may.
Mr. Chairman, I answer my friend Senator Spruill by saying exactly.
Thank you so much, sir.
So I've got Senator Reeves, Senator Kiggins, and Q. Do you all have questions, or you want to speak to the bill?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak to the bill at the appropriate time.
All right, Senator Reeves, go ahead. Oh, you want to speak to the bill? I'm sorry. Just questions right now. You'll have time at the end to speak to it. Senator Kiggins, do you have a question?
I have a question,
Sure.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, in a concern, I had heard just a discussion about this bill, if there's any pending or active just litigation concerning this issue from the county.
Mr. Chairman, I would answer Senator Kiggins by saying the Martinsville City Council approved after this bill went through and has been going through the process on the House side, the House of Delegates. They have approved an ordinance by special meeting at the end of January that they're saying basically that they're accusing Henry County of breaching the agreement, and so now they intend to file to send to the Supreme Court a petitioning the court to form a 3-judge panel to rule on town reversion. That has not occurred yet as of this time, but it seems to be a reaction to this bill rather than some natural course that, this bill is not trying to stop that. That litigation is trying to stop that pending or potential future litigation, that's better said, is trying to stop this bill.
All right, let's start the clock. Can we start the clock then? We have about 250 on there, I think, something like that. All right, and I see, is there anybody else in person and live to speak to the bill? Joe.
Mr. Chairman, Joe Lurch with VACO, just speaking in support of our member Henry County, who's here to testify. I know Tim Hall, the county administrator, is online. Thank you.
All right.
Tim Hall, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Yep.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Tim Hall. I'm the county administrator for Henry County. I speak representing the County Board of Supervisors. Henry County is the locality that would absorb the town of Martinsville and all those requirements that would come with that. Our Board of Supervisors is in favor of SB 85, and we request that you move it out of committee today. This is really a simple question to our Board of Supervisors. Should the residents of the city of Martinsville, not Henry County, the city of Martinsville, have a say in the future of their locality? As Senator Stanley's pointed out, once a city reverts, there is no going back. And the gravity of that decision should not be made by a 5-person city council, of whom only 4 have consistently voted in favor of reversion. There are approximately 14,000 people in the city of Martinsville. Our Board of Supervisors thinks that they should have a say in their future and give them a chance to decide their own fate. Thank you.
I've got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
What about this memorandum of agreement that the county had with the city? What's the story on that?
As we understand it, Mr. Chairman, the memorandum of understanding required 3 public actions to approve. Our board did 2 of those. However, in the interim between votes 2 and 3, I think our board would tell you that they began to listen better than they had before to the citizens who wanted to pump the brakes a little bit on it. So we did take action on it twice. It was not a unanimous vote, but the third time our board voted to basically stop that process.
What was the vote on the first 2 votes?
One was both the votes in favor were 4-2. Then the last vote in opposition was 4-2.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going.
Charles Whitfield, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Yes, sir. Charles Whitfield, representing the faith-based community in Martinsville. I also serve with the Black Caucus of Martinsville County. And our stand is to approve the Senate bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Lawrence Mitchell, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Yes, my name is Lawrence Mitchell. I'm a resident of Martinsville and former school board member. First of all, I'd like to thank my fellow law school graduate, Bill Stanley, for supporting this bill. Everything he said is correct. And sometimes I think that it's not too late for the citizens of Martinsville to speak up. So I support this bill and thank Bill Stanley. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a minute left, so just very briefly, please.
Donald Williams, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Yes, I'm Donald Williams. I am a resident of Martinsville and Henry County since 1977. I can tell you how I have felt during this process. I have felt like the tail has been wagging the dog on this one. I felt like somebody has brought to me a very, very wonderful dinner of, say, for instance, a steak dinner, and they presented it to me not on a platter, but on a garbage top. It has felt very, very disrespectful, and we would support the idea of a referendum that allows Martinsville residents the opportunity to vote regarding this reversion. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, the next two folks, just state your name and your opposition.
Tammy Pearson, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Thank you. I am Tammy Pearson. I am on the Martinsville City Council, and I'm also a small business owner of several businesses in both Martinsville and Henry County. I support this bill. I was the only dissenting vote, but I believe that the citizens should be able to have their say. Thank you.
Next.
Mary Martin, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Okay, looks like we've lost her.
Mary, if you're speaking right now, we cannot hear you. Please unmute.
All right, let's hear those folks against Senate Bill 85.
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
And we'll give you all a little extra time at the end, too, since we ran over. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman and Senators, thank you. I'm Eric Mundy, the City Attorney for Martinsville. And the first thing I would like to address, despite the great respect I have for Mr. Stanley, and I've been a career-long supporter and Martinsville City voter for his, there is ongoing litigation, and there has been since August of 2020. The City Council voted unanimously in December of 2019 to begin the contested litigation process. We filed with the Commission on Local Government in accordance with the referendum-free requirements that have been in place for 40 years. Chapter 15.2.2908 states that that does begin the contested reversion. Shortly after that, Henry County engaged in negotiations with us. That was ultimately comprehensively mediated by the McCammon Group. There was a signed MOU that was signed by both the city and the county. It was approved by the county. That ultimately turned into a much larger comprehensive voluntary settlement agreement, also signed by the county and approved by the county, and subsequently approved by the Commission on Local Government, again pursuant to the legal structure that's been in place for 40 years, who found that that was in the best interest of the Commonwealth, the city, and the county. What happened after that was the November 2021 elections. At that point, the county pulled out of the comprehensive settlement agreement, and they have made no bones in their public statements about their desire to seek a legislative fix here at the General Assembly. What we hope you will not do is inject the General Assembly's finger on the scale in something that is currently in litigation. After the county pulled out of their VSA, we asked for a comprehensive arbitration with the McCammon Group because there is an arbitration provision. The county has filed in Henry County Circuit Court a lawsuit contesting arbitrability and saying that the VSA is simply a worthless piece of paper. All the local judges have recused themselves from that. That litigation is in the process of being appointed a different judge from somewhere else in Virginia. The Supreme Court has not done that. That is pending. In the meantime, the City Council has also voted to proceed with the contested reversion that began in August of 2020. Those pleadings have been filed, and what is waiting for that is the Supreme Court to appoint the three-judge panel. And we have also moved to fold the arbitrability issue and the enforcement of that, again, signed and approved comprehensive settlement agreement in with the contested reversion in front of the three-judge panel, which the existing code sections deem as the appropriate authority to hear this. So there very much is pending litigation. And we ask you to, one, leave the statutory framework that's 4 decades old in place and not inject the General Assembly into what is fundamentally a local dispute. Thank you.
So, hang on a second. Senator Spruill.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Let me go back to 2006.
Yes, sir.
So I don't believe in the county concept. I'm a city boy all my life.
Yes, sir.
But I do want to have the citizens to have input. So based on the 2000 concept, what is the reason to allow the citizen in the city to have a referendum to say to city, to recommend the city council that the citizen has said yea or nay? Are you in favor to allow? Now, I'm not talking about all the stuff y'all talking about. I'm just looking at the citizen of the city who wants to have a referendum to say, let the citizen have a referendum to tell the council we want or we don't want. What's wrong with that?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Senator Spruill, one, the framework has been in place for 40 years. There are other referendum requirements elsewhere in the code, which is why there have been no successful conversions of counties to towns or consolidations to towns.
That's not my question, sir. My question is a referendum.
Yes, sir.
What's wrong with the allowing the citizens of Hendry County, the city, on a referendum, like all other cities in the whole state, for referendum, but they want to do something different? What's wrong with council having a problem to allow the citizens of Hendry County to have a referendum that says yea or nay to the city council?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Spruill, the difference is that referendum, this bill is solely for the citizens of Martinsville City.
Yes, sir.
No reversion, and there have been 3 previously, have included the requirement for a referendum because it's not currently part of state code. There have been elections, city council elections, since the unanimous vote, which was taken in December of 2019. 2 of the people that voted for that are here in the room, our mayor and, at the time, Vice Mayor Martin there, who are overwhelmingly reelected. Reversion was not really a part of the election campaign where these people were reelected, and they were not turned out of office. Councilmember Pearson, that you heard from, was elected at that time, and she's the one subsequently dissenting vote on this issue, but it was not a major part of her campaign either.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Spruill.
Could I have the mayor, someone, because he is ducking my question. I'm not saying how to elect. All I'm saying is that the citizens of the city, of Martinsville, the citizen of the city, all I'm saying, why not allow the citizen? I'm not talking about no reversion, whatever you're talking about. I'm saying that whatever's done right or wrong, I'm saying, why not allow? I just want to ask my question. I don't want no other kind of stuff. My question is, why have you not allowed the citizen of Martinsville City? Why have not the city council allowed them to have a referendum to say yeah or nay, whatever's taking place? I want that question answered. I don't care who got elected. My question is the referendum.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Senator Spruill, they have not because there is currently no law in place for that. The council has followed existing law. There's also no available avenue for even an advisory referendum. It just simply doesn't exist.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to associate my comments with my good friend from Chesapeake. And one of the things I've learned being in office 10 years is that the people will get your attention. And if you want something done, you want to find out, you got to give it to the people. You know, this is a big issue for this city. And I think the people don't feel like they've had a voice. You've heard that. We just had a big referendum on gambling in the city of Richmond, and everybody thought gambling was coming to Richmond. And lo and behold, the citizens of Richmond didn't want gambling. And it was a shock to those people. So, you know, we may not have had it in the code, Mr. Chairman, but I think we ought to get it in the code and get it to the people so they have the opportunity to have their own voice heard. So I would move to report the bill at the appropriate time.
Well, we've got a ways to go yet. I assume that there are significant economic factors driving your decision to revert.
There have been. Mr. Chairman, we are one of the most fiscally stressed communities in the Commonwealth. We have a declining school population, and each year they ask for a larger and larger appropriation, and it's on an ultimately unsustainable track. Mr. Chairman, if I may briefly respond to Senator Reeves.
Yes, sir.
Since this process began in 2019, There have been 12 public information sessions specifically devoted to reversion. There have been 4 public hearings specifically devoted to reversion. There have been 70 public comment periods at council meetings for people to comment on anything, including reversion. There have been 4 neighborhood meetings that also have an opportunity for citizens to comment on reversion. And there has been a dedicated email site up and running since 2019, which since 2019 has produced exactly 4 emails regarding reversion. There were people that appeared at these public hearings. I have attended all of them. They were overwhelmingly county residents because overwhelmingly the county opposes reversion. They backed out of the VSA because they were trying to seek the exact legislative fix that we're here about today.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Reeves.
Is there anything in the code, maybe council can answer this, that would prevent the city from they've done all these seminars and everything else, couldn't they just run a non vote, so to speak, to run it out there just to get that?
Mr. Chairman, there's currently no authority in the Code of Virginia for a city to hold an advisory referendum or any other kind of referendum without specific authority set out in the code.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question follow-up when you mentioned fiscal stress. I noted Henry County's current real estate tax rate is 55 cents. Martinsville, almost double that, $1.06. Has the math been done on what a potential tier tax would be in Martinsville? In addition to the base?
Yes, Senator Hanger, there are fiscal studies that are required before you even initiate the reversion process. And briefly to the issue of double taxation, when you're a town resident, you're part of the county, you get 2 tax bills. That doesn't mean that your tax bill doubles. It's just that you get one bill from the town and one from the county. Our studies projected a net tax decrease for future town residents in Martinsville, and there would be a net tax increase for residents of Henry County. But the overall savings to Martinsville residents is a net savings in terms of tax burden.
All right. Anything else, Senator Hanger? Okay. All right. We've got a minute and a half left. Minute 45.
I'll yield to our mayor.
Yeah. Madam Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, over the last decade, Henry County has repeatedly sought to change the framework on how reversion process works. And their goal has always been to prevent Martinsville, and only Martinsville, from being able to do so. This legislation is just another attempt to do the same. The only thing that has changed in the past few months is there is a small group of people who have decided that they can go to Richmond, to change the law at the last minute to prevent reversion and apply this new law only to Martinsville and no other locality in the state. More importantly, a referendum has never been part of the reversion process since it was originally put in place in the 1980s. This is bad politics. It's even worse public policy. Henry County wants new rules for Martinsville only. This is no different than someone trying to change the rules of a game while the game is under the way, and it doesn't go their way, or someone you've already sued trying to retroactively change the rules so that you can't sue them. It's not right under either of those circumstances, and it's not right now. The Commission on Local Government made their ruling that reversion was in the best interest of the Commonwealth of Virginia, the City of Martinsville, and Henry County. They also stated, the Commission would like to remind all parties of their primary duties to serve and lead the citizens and not their own self-interest. Not only have we complied with the basic requirements, we far exceeded them. The city believes in following the rule of law. We believe the Commonwealth should stay the course and the laws that have been in place for every locality across the state for almost 40 years. And we respectfully ask you to vote no on this bill. And Mr. Chairman, our Vice Mayor, Jennifer Bowles, is joining us by Zoom. If we could defer to her for the next speaker.
All right, and I'm going to give you all a little bit of extra time because we ran over on the proponents. So, Ms. Bowles.
Jennifer Bowles, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Bowles, and I currently serve as the Vice Mayor in the City of Martinsville. I've been on council since 2014. I was born and raised in Martinsville, left to go to school at UVA, and came back home to serve the community I love. I am against this bill as I feel that the Henry County Board of Supervisors wants to prevent Democrat and Black voices to be on the Board of Supervisors, which is historically white and Republican, as agreed upon by our joint voluntary settlement agreement. And I agree with the comments by our mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We've got one other person in there. Mr. Teague, can you just state your name, your opposition?
Mr. Chairman and Senators, thank you for the opportunity my name is Gene Tigg, and I'm a former council member, former mayor. The only point I would make is that this process reversion has been a discussion since 1994 and years before that. Every election that's conducted, this is a topic of that conversation. And this process actually started in 2017. And so there's been numerous opportunities for input by our citizens. This is a change in a process that doesn't afford the city the opportunity to understand when the election cycle is going to be, to pick the best timing for its for this vote. I think it's a change in the process that should not occur. I oppose the bill. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Senator Stanley, anything you want to say?
Well, look, this is my good friend, Chad Martin. So Mr. Martin serves on the board of the city council, and I know he's out of time, but he came all the way down here. He's been a good friend of mine for many years, probably. So if you can just voice your opposition.
Just a couple of seconds. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say really briefly a testament that I have more than per se anybody else. My parents actually live in the county. And so not only am I concentrating on the citizens of Martinsville, but I care about the county as well because my parents actually live in the county. And to Senator Stanley's point about those African Americans that live in Martinsville, I grew up in Martinsville and went to Martinsville High School. So I do have a personal stake within the Martinsville and the Henry County. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Stanley, do you want to say anything briefly?
Just in response, I am reminded of Mr. Monday who said when it came to the city of Martinsville, we're not broke, we're not going to be broke. We're going to work out better than this. City of Martinsville is not experiencing the fiscal stress. In fact, when we offered to have the 1% school tax for school modernization, the response was to Delegate Marshall, we don't want the income. So the cost or the pricing and the statements that there's financial stress are not true. We have Ms. Easley here who can tell you that, but you also have a PowerPoint program as well. Not only is this important, but over in the House of Delegates, it passed 87-13, the same bill, with overwhelming bipartisan support. Because ultimately what we believe here is that it should be up to the people to decide. And the only litigation that they're referencing is actually about the contract dispute between the county and the city, not actual reversion. That is not litigation. They try to stick the spoke put the stick in the spoke of the wheel as if we will just stop and not think of the people. Please let the citizens of the city of Martinsville decide. This is not about race. And I did not bring this bill, and I will reiterate this again, for Henry County. I did not consult with them. I did not talk to them. I talked to the faith-based leaders and the community activists who came to me because I served them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Senator Stanley, and let me take the chairman's prerogative a little bit, tell you where I am on this. So, I fully understand the value in referenda and letting the people have a voice, but I have to assume that these 4 or 5 folks, how many people are on city council who have at various times voted unanimously or then with one dissenting vote to go down this path have taken a look at the books, and the books are not pretty. And the Commission on Local Government has weighed in on this as well. And they've signed MOUs. And, I'm just afraid that if you open it up to referendum, there are going to be people my age, your age, with those bulldog sweatshirts hanging in the closet that are going to make a vote based on nostalgia rather than on cold, hard reality. So that's sort of where I am. Anybody else? Senator Spruill.
Mr. Chairman, question to our legal counsel, please. The question to you is that I've heard that this is in court. normally in the past, I've heard that whenever there's a dispute between the cities, whatever going on, there's something in court that we back off of it, that we don't touch because it's in court. So just fix that category.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, there's nothing that would prevent this committee from acting on the bill. I mean, a custom is up to y'all to decide whether you want to follow that or not. That's not something that's in the books, so to speak.
And Mr. Chairman, the House of Delegates having the same facts before it. And again, Senator Spruill, I'd answer him by saying a deck action over the contract dispute between the city and the town is not litigation for reversion. It's over a dispute between the city and the county. And so that's what it is.
Thank you.
Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Hanger did, I think, a lot of work on fiscal distress over the last couple of years to set up the review of the Auditor of Public Accounts and a number of different things. And at some point, we already have 15.2 4101 set out, which deals with the code section of exactly this, of populations less than 50,000, the local commission. Senator Stanley, you're using this vehicle to subvert 15.2 4101. Why not tackle that as an issue itself?
Mr. Chairman, I answered my friend by saying it's not an act. I'm not trying to subvert anything. I'm addressing a specific issue that the people, the citizens of the city of Martinsville have brought to me, much in the same way that we always do. If you want to tackle that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, I mean,
Senator McPike.
Just speaking to.
I mean, Jeremy,
speaking to the bill, Mr. Chairman.
I'll give you a second.
Thank you. You know, there's a lot of complexities with this, and it's not just the city of Martinsville. I mean, I think looking more broadly, there is some issue that at some point the state is going to pick up the tab on those that do collapse fiscally, and so we've got to reconcile this at some point in time. I think I've listened to both sides. This has been a difficult choice, but number one, I'm not sure I'm interested in getting involved in litigation. Number two, I'm certainly not involved in changing for one locality an entire code section that lays out a very coherent and logical process to have the Commission on Local Government address this, set out MAUs, and this seeks to basically torpedo it. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Senator Stanley, you want a couple seconds to respond to that?
Only that, I'm not trying to subvert. I'm not trying to do anything like that, but I think, quite frankly, it is important for the people of the city of Martinsville. You heard them speak. You didn't hear anybody that spoke except for those that are elected that are for reversion. Why not let their voice be heard? Maybe they will vote for reversion, but let them have that vote. Let them have that right. The city of Martinsville is too great just to cast it away. And Mr. Chairman, I will tell you, Ruth Easley is right here. We are not in fiscal distress. Are we in fiscal distress?
We are fiscally stressed just like Henry County is. I'm sorry.
Never ask a question you don't know the answer to, Senator Stanley.
Oh, no, everybody's stressed. Tell me a locality that's not stressed, distress.
Mr. Chairman, I would say that we are in fiscal stress just like Henry County. However, our fund balance is exceeding our fund balance policies that have been set by City Council. The fund balance policy, the fund balance when I was elected in 2002 set at $1.3 million. Today, it's north of 11 point something.
Thank you. All right. Senate Bill 85 is in front of us.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded that Senate Bill 85, did we have an amendment on this, or was there a substitute or anything? We didn't do anything to it. All right, as amended, be reported. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 9, noes 5.
There you go. Good job.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
All right, I think that completes our docket for the day. Am I correct?
Mr. Chair, that is correct.
All right, we are adjourned.